So I'm going to show you guys this video. Keeping in mind the idea of cognitive shortcuts, okay? This woman's name is Dahlia Mogahed. Okay.
What do you think when
I'm telling you, if
you look at me?
oh, yeah, here we go.
A woman of faith, an expert, maybe even a
Start
sister.
that over.
Or what do you think when you look at me? A woman of faith, an expert, maybe even a sister. Or oppressed, brainwashed, a terror. Or just an airport security line delay. That one's actually true. If some of your
So, when she asked you guys what you guys think of her when you see her, did anybody in their heads kind of censor what they wanted to say? Or did anybody think to themselves, well, I don't see you this way, but I can understand how another person might see you, right? She's talking about the visibility markers too. She's talking about these cognitive shortcuts too. And what we're going to do today is specifically look at how the Muslim community was treated after 9/11. Okay, so what I want you to do now is kind of draw a Venn diagram for Dahlia too. Another Venn diagram for Dahlia. And then the left circle, let me get a second. Write down some of the words that she just said. Right? Write down some of the words in the left circle over here about how others may perceive her. Right? She said, one of the words that she used was oppressed because she's wearing the hijab. Okay. We had words like oppressed. Someone give me another one. In the back, what's your name? Radira. What's another one? A terrorist. All right, this is pretty much the main one, right? Okay. Now what I want you to do is listen now to what Dahlia has to say about herself.
Your perceptions were negative, I don't really blame you. That's just how the media has been portraying people who look like me. One study found that 80% of news coverage about Islam and Muslims is negative. And studies show that Americans say that most don't know a Muslim. I guess people don't talk to their Uber drivers. Well, for those of you who've never met a Muslim, it's great to meet you. Let me tell you who I am. I'm a mom, a coffee lover, double espresso cream on the side. I'm an introvert. I'm a wannabe fitness fanatic, and I'm a practicing spiritual Muslim. But not like Lady Gaga says, because baby, I wasn't born this way. It was a choice. When I was 17, I decided to come out. No, not as a gay person like some of my friends, but as a Muslim, and decided to start wearing the hijab, my head covering.
Okay. What are some ways that Dolly describes herself? Tia?
Mom.
You said a mom?
Yeah.
What is your name?
Jalen.
Jalen?
Introvert.
An introvert? What else? And your name?
No.
What else?
Lover.
Sorry?
Coffee lover.
Coffee lover. You relate to that, as some of you guys also can, according to your surveys. Anything else that grabbed your attention? What was your name again, hon? Emily?
She's spiritual.
A spiritual practicing Muslim. And you girls know, did you guys have Mrs. Cass for world history? Some of you did, some of you had Mrs. Keating or Mrs. Castellano. Okay. We should know by this point, right? Or maybe you don't, maybe you forgot, but Muslim is the word for a person practicing Islam, right? Christians practice Christianity, work like many of us here are Catholics, okay, because you practice beliefs of the Roman Catholic Church. Jewish people who practice Judaism are called Jews, right? Muslims are people who practice Islam. This is a recap. Okay. Do any of these words overlap? No, right? Because these cognitive shortcuts and these visibility markers are not effective in trying to get to know a person.
My feminist friends were aghast. Why are you oppressing yourself? The funny thing was, it was actually at that time a feminist declaration of independence from the pressure I felt as a 17-year-old to conform to a perfect and unattainable standard of beauty. I didn't just passively accept the faith of my parents. I wrestled with the Quran. I read and reflected and questioned and doubted and ultimately believed.
The Quran is the holy book for
My relationship
Islam.
with God, it was not love at first sight. It was a trust and a slow surrender that deepened with every reading of the Quran. Its rhythmic beauty sometimes moves me to tears. I see myself in it. I feel that God knows me. Have you ever felt like someone sees you, completely understands you, and yet loves you anyway? That's how it feels. And so later, I got married, and like all good Egyptians, started my career as an engineer. I later had a child after getting married, and I was living essentially the Egyptian American dream. And then that terrible morning of September 2001. I think a lot of you probably remember exactly where you were that morning. I was sitting in my kitchen, finishing breakfast, and I look up on the screen and see the words breaking news. There was smoke, airplanes flying into buildings, people jumping out of buildings. What was this? An accident? A malfunction? My shock quickly turned to outrage. Who would do this? I switched the channel. I hear Muslim terrorist, in the name of Islam, Middle Eastern descent, jihad. We should bomb Mecca. Oh my God. Not only had my country been attacked, but in a flash, somebody else's actions had turned me from a citizen to a suspect. That same day, we had to drive.
Okay. So, after listening to Dolly speak, right? Did your ideas of her change over time? Maybe a little bit? Okay. What I'm trying to bring to light here is that post 9/11, there's been an increasingly large anti-Muslim sentiment in the United States, okay? Dahlia is trying to give you guys an idea about what it is like to be in her shoes after this event that happened in history. So, for many people like her, life post 9/11 changed dramatically. Okay, if you think about it, later on in this, Dahlia actually asks, how many Muslim friends do you have? How many times have you even spoken to somebody who practices Islam? And a lot of the times people say either never or very rarely. Okay, because of these perceived notions and these misconceptions of this group of people due to the actions of such a small group. And we're going to be looking at the breakdown of Islam and the different sects within Islam that pretty much show us what percentage of the religion even believes in these radical extreme ideas that were so powerful that they brought people to commit this day 19 years ago. Okay, let me pause this really quick. In this next lesson that we're going to look at, we're actually going to be doing a little bit of research about hate crimes. I'm just going to navigate it on my screen. You guys won't have to do anything. Bum, bum, bum. And my screen isn't frozen, is it? Nope. Okay, that's fine. Let me find the next video or what have you. Okay. There we go. Can everybody see this a little bit? Make it go widescreen maybe. Okay. All right, take a second to look at it. Those of you in the back, do you need me to zoom or? Okay. Take a second to look at it. All right. Who do you see on the cover? Here? Okay, it's a Muslim man driving. How do you know? Anybody? Sorry? The turban. Okay, good. So, and what's happening here on this cover?
We're like people,
Okay.
I think that it's trying to show like that he's kind of impressed and that's the job that most of us supposed to have.
Very good. Anybody else? Does this man look happy? No, right? Okay. So basically, this picture is meant to show how Americans do view the Muslim community post 9/11. All right. So this is the piece of information that comes directly underneath this picture that the New York Times put out, this cover, after it was released, okay? Because it was released on November 5th, 2001. All right, that's in the top right corner. The shock and grief of 9/11 became part of the fabric of American life. Even as many Americans hoped to return to normal, they confronted the dilemma of balancing concerns about safety and security with limitations on cherished freedoms. Americans of Middle Eastern and South Asian descent hoped, with the added stress of being perceived negatively based solely on their appearance. So this is from 2001. And really, the man is in the cab, right? And it looks like he's hiding under this idea of patriotism, when in reality, okay, on the inside, you can see he's hiding, he's sitting low. This was sent out in 2001 to negatively depict the Muslim community. All right. We're going to look at a hate crimes chart really quickly. Let's see. After we check out this video.
You know, I would go early to class, and I wanted to sit down next to this very pretty undergraduate who I was hoping to date. And I got out of the subway early, and that was when the first plane hit, the first car was hit. And like most New Yorkers, I imagine every New Yorker, you know, we thought it was a horrible accident. You know, terrible, but an accident. And in retrospect, you know, nobody really sat there and said, why would a plane that large be flying directly into a building, right? Would there not be some evidence of a pilot attempting to, you know, and many people sat, you know, or stood staring and watching, and I thought to myself, you know, I'll go to class and we'll figure out what happened. And I went to class. Class was in the basement of Washington Square Park, and about, I don't know, maybe half an hour later, the student came downstairs and said, the second tower's been hit. And it's interesting you asked me the reaction. I knew it was Bin Laden right away. I studied the Middle East. I came from a very religious family. My parents encouraged me to be, I think, to be aware of the Muslim world, both the good and the very ugly. And I knew instantly that there was no other movement or organization that could do that or would want to do that. And I remember one of the first claims of responsibility was the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. I don't know if anyone remembers that. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no way the FLP would or could do this. And it was a very strange moment because, you know, for one thing, my brother worked in the tower. So, you know, I was panicked because I didn't know what had happened to him. I was scared, just like anyone else was scared, because there's massive attackers unfolding. Rumors were swirling. I'm sure you heard that, you know, we heard Denver was hit, and Pittsburgh was hit, and Seattle was hit. And I was president of one of the, if not the largest community in proximity to Ground Zero Muslim community. And I'm a 21-year-old kid whose intention that morning was to go on a date. And now I'm standing there in Washington Square Park looking at a sky full of smoke. And I asked a friend of mine, you know, what are we supposed to do now? And he said, well, you know, you're the president of the Muslim Club, so that's up to you. And that was a very overwhelming.
Hey guys. So where was Haroon on the morning of 9/11? Generally speaking. Sasha? Right, so basically he's in school, and he was in the basement of like a school building, right? Just a very average morning for him, right? And what was his main concern? Wanted to go on a date with some girl. Okay? And he felt such a major responsibility to speak out for the Muslim community post 9/11 and make sure that he was on top of things, because he knew immediately that the country would change and paint every Muslim in the US with this negative idea that they took part in this, that they supported this attack. All right, so he took that as a very overwhelming moment because to him, it felt like he now was carrying that weight on his shoulders because he was proud to be a Muslim and proud and qualified to be the president of this Muslim community at school. But now things are going to change rapidly. Let's see, is this frozen? No. This is a new one.
For me personally, what was really hard about that moment of process is that I felt, standing in the park that day, that now I had a responsibility, given what I knew in my position, to be part of a conversation that I knew was going to happen. In many respects, this conversation is now a growth of those conversations. And yet I also realized that I had almost no means of entry into the conversations that really matter. And so, here I am, a brown Pakistani American Muslim kid who's 21 years old and, walks around with a backpack attached to him. I have no idea how any of these political conversations were even structured. My parents were doctors. It was assumed I would be a doctor. Everyone I knew was a doctor. Before we were in country, everyone would starve to death because there were only doctors. But we would know exactly why we were starving to death. So this is very unique kind of society we were constructing. And the reason I point that out is because then there was this feeling that, okay, my identity is now going to be implicated in this. But how do I push back against that? And the challenge for a lot of American Muslims was that many of us we didn't even know how to be part of the conversation. So one of the things I often hear when I travel the country is, why don't more American Muslims, or why don't more Muslims condemn terrorism? Every single Muslim organization I know of has condemned terrorism so often that it seems like that's all they do. And yet nobody hears it. Sometimes that's because nobody's listening, but sometimes that's because the people who are speaking don't actually know how to get their voices into mainstream conversation. It's like they're talking to themselves. And what I felt for the years after 9/11 was that my identity was implicated, that Islam was implicated, and I wanted to say things, and either nobody was listening to me, or it was assumed that, because I'm Muslim, I'm speaking out as a partisan or sectarian perspective, and I can't actually have the best interest of my country at heart.
Okay. So this is a chart. I'm not sure, I don't really think you can see it too well, but open it up. This is a chart of anti-Muslim hate crimes. On the left, the table indicates a number of reported incidents right here. This is the number of reported incidents. This is 100 right here. This is 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, right? And this is per year. So it was low as what seems to be like 30 in 1996, 30 individual hate crimes in 1996. And this pretty much stays the same until 2000. And then post 9/11, in 2001, this average of about less than 40 hate crimes committed against the Muslim community per year, this skyrockets to 500 in the year after 9/11. Okay, so we're looking at individuals such as Haroon, such as Dahlia, whose life was completely normal until this day. And then afterwards, they paid the consequences ever since during this time. Because as you can see, while it was the highest it had ever been and ever was in 2001, when it comes back down in the following years, does it return back to its norm? No. So while these hate crimes decreased rapidly, they still more than doubled, right? From 30 to about 175. They still more than doubled in the coming years and spiked again in 2015, 2016, and 2017. Why? Why did they spark again in 2015, 16, 17? Do you guys remember things like the Boston Marathon? Do you remember things like the Paris attacks and things like that? So America, okay, is not slow to respond with hate crimes when certain individuals or members of the community commit acts like this. Let's see, close that up. Okay. And then we're gonna look at part 3. This is the final part with the final video. So I wanted to show you this chart. Earlier I had mentioned that we were gonna check this out. Okay, so if you know, think about Christianity, right? You have Lutheranism, you have evangelicals, you have Roman Catholics, you have just, trying to think of the different groups, Protestants, right? Different groups. Now let's look here. Here is Islam. Here is Islam. Here is Sunniism. Islamism. Salafism. Jihadism, when you think of jihadist, right? Jihadism, and then Al-Qaeda's core. That's a little tiny group, right? So what happened was, because of the actions of this group, this entire population in the United States suffered. Wait, I think we picked up on that. Okay. So we have 3 minutes left. I think that he has one more video that I would like you guys to watch.
It's a deeply humbling moment, I think, for Muslims when the greatest victims of Islamic extremism are themselves Muslims. Groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda primarily kill Muslims. They kill lots of people, but the primary victims are Muslim. Some of that is proximity, simply because they are, within Muslim majority societies. Some of that is ideological. They believe that most Muslims are incompletely or insufficiently Muslim, if not actually heretics of some kind, and so their lives are on forfeit. And so it's deeply humbling because the actions of a small minority, although albeit very dangerous, but a small minority, have come to stand in for religion at large. So it is a very unique moment, to say the least, when you are a member of a community of 1.5 billion people who cannot escape the actions or the ideology of the minority among them, especially one that is sort of murderously set against them. So that is, I think, for a lot of American Muslims and a lot of Muslims globally, a profound challenge and a deep psychological wound. That why am I associated with that? And what is it about my religion that allows it to be associated with that? Parallel to that, I think there was, after 9/11, a very brief window in which we as a country could have decided how we wanted to respond to terrorism. And we could have responded with direct action against those individuals and organizations that were immediately responsible, but that was, to use a resident word, hijacked by many people in sort of policy-making circles into a civilizational conflict. We decided to conflate Saddam Hussein with Al-Qaeda, and in so doing, we turned the problem of terrorism into a problem with Islam, and made the decision to go to war with Iraq. I believe that was probably the worst foreign policy decision in American history. We will suffer its effects for years, if not decades to come. And if we are lucky, the region can maybe return to a status quo that pertained to 10 or 15 years ago.
So I know class is ending. Does anybody have any thoughts about today? Right, I feel like many times when this date passes year after year, we always look at, what specific time the towers hit. what specific time, you know. We talk about the people who went to bed the night before, and I think it's important too to talk about the psychological effects that happen afterwards, you know? The first responders that still suffer from PTSD and the community of New York, and even communities that you don't necessarily think of immediately when you think of 9/11 as victims. But I just wanted to bring light to this idea that, you know, cognitive shortcuts are not the way to go, and that it definitely benefits to take more time to learn about a person before you make an opinion about them. All right, so now that everybody is probably just like having a really weird Friday now, enjoy the rest of your day and have a good weekend. I think you guys have to stick around. Thank you, hon. I think you guys have to stick around. If you do have your printed syllabus, you can just give it to me if you want. I know you're gonna head out, but you have to stay here for 5 minutes anyways, so. If you would rather just give me your printed syllabus and take a picture of it later, you guys can. No, you should have told first and less. I don't think you know. So what do you do? I will. No. Who are we on? I can't go home, I have to stay here. I do have one Yeah, because now I have to, you know, like print all my stuff for my other classes, make up the materials, grade all the stuff, like I have to grade those little quizzes you guys submitted, all that jazz. So I have things to do, but. Oh no, the crash course thing. Yeah, no. And listen, I'm not grading it too. This is an elective, don't worry, it's not gonna be all crazy. Did you not?
I spread everything out.
Don't push me like that.
So, you didn't, it's not, You can do it in 2 minutes. I'm not
She likes scrubbing.
Girls, you do not have homework this weekend. We're not playing that game.
Someone could be at 7.
They were screaming. The market out, they were like, you should have. Me and half of their days, like, fruit and I was just so interested.
Oh, hey guys, you're just coming to join us?
So far.
Girls, you can go. It's 9:04, but you can get going if you like. No, gotta go this way, Reel in, gotta go that way. Sorry guys, thank you. Have a good weekend. I thought I did it. Trust yourself. Hi. How's it going, guys? Oh man.
I asked about you know it.
This is crazy. You guys are juniors, and then the other guys are seniors. It's just wild. It's crazy how that works, you know? It's better than my room upstairs, girls. That's all I'm gonna say. Oh my gosh, I've been recording this whole time. Why? I don't even know how to stop it. How do I stop it? How do you pause recording?